ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So here we are seeing Lord Kapila is describing about the fortunate soul who has come in human form of life, realizing his past many births by the mercy of the Lord, being in a very, very distressed condition of life. He prays with folded hand to the Supreme Lord, even within the womb of his mother. Prabhupada explains elsewhere that the child prays to the Paramatma form, the four-handed form of the Lord in the form of Vishnu. And if he is pious, if he is advanced in spiritual life, and if he is fortunate, then he prays to the Lord. So it is very important to understand that if someone has realized this fact that I am a small particle of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I am Anu and the Supreme Lord is Vibhu. I am his eternal servant. Unfortunately, because of my varieties of impious activities, I have been taking birth in this material world, arranged by Maya under the direction of the Supreme Lord. But factually, all my troubles can be vanquished if I surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one can reach this conclusion even within the womb of his mother, Prabhupada explains his liberation is assured. Because this is what is given in Bhagavad Gita. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudevam sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabhaha. It is very rare to find a great soul, Mahatma, who comes to this conclusion after many, many births that Vasudevam Sarvamiti, everything is resting on Lord Vasudeva. Everything is emanating from him. and so I must surrender unto Him. So, such a soul is considered to be very, very rare. So here we can see the scriptures explain this. Generally, we know God consciousness is in every living entity's heart. But it is covered. Prabhupada explains this. We can see practically in most of the human life, sometimes or others, he wants to pray to God. That itself is an indication that actually this praying to God is there in the heart of every living entity. But it is covered. And generally, when the living entity is in distress, if he is pious, he prays to the Lord. So, this opportunity can be further advanced if such a fortunate soul takes birth in the family of a Vaishnava. Someone who remembered the Lord even within the womb of his mother, if he is fortunate to take birth in the family of a Vaishnava, then he will not forget that Supreme Lord to whom he prayed in the womb of his mother when he was in distress. Whereas, if he takes birth in the family of a materialistic person, then immediately after his birth, he is taken care of by his parents, by his relatives, and very soon he forgets the miserable condition of life and that he prayed to the Supreme Lord in the womb of his mother. And then he thinks that now my problem can be solved. Isn't it? So imagine, sometimes we may wonder that how come we forget that. It's very common. Sometimes we find somebody has come to Krishna consciousness. He practices for some time. He is praying, chanting 16 rounds daily, but after some time, he falls victim of Maya. Then he doesn't even chant, doesn't even come to the temple. Sometimes we find that. Of course, whatever one has done, that remains his permanent asset. But for the time being, Maya will cover him. And we do not know. The entanglement of Maya is like that. Whole lifetime may pass by and we may not realize that actually once upon a time I had practiced devotional life. So to take birth in the family of a Vaishnava is a great fortune. And the parents have this responsibility that someone who has taken birth in the family of a Vaishnava can revive his pure consciousness. It's very important. So there is a very nice conversation Prabhupada had with one Dr. Benford. There Prabhupada explains this. Those who are born in the family of Vaishnavas are actually very fortunate in one sense. Dr. Benford, is it true that the children of all such parents are somewhat spiritually superior to the children of other parents? So, Dr. Ben, that he had asked about when Prabhupada was explaining that at 7 months the child becomes conscious. We find that even in the example of Maharaj Parikshit. When Maharaj Parikshit was in the womb of his mother and he was attacked by Brahmastra, the Lord personally entered the womb of Uttara to save Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj at that time, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Because at that time, when the child is about to be born, he is conscious. And by the mercy of the Lord, it is very much possible that he can pray to the Lord, or if he is a great devotee of the Lord, he can see the Lord face to face, like Parikshit Maharaj saw. So this question he is asking, that whether this is possible at the 7 month. Dr. Benford, at 7 months? Prabhupada, yes. The child wants to come out. He feels uncomfortable. Therefore, he prays to God to kindly release him from the bondage. He promises that when he gets out, he will become a devotee of God. So after 9 months, he comes out of the womb. But then, very important thing Prabhupada explains. Unless his parents are devotees, due to circumstances, he forgets God. So even though one may have remembered, one may have prayed to the Lord in the womb of the mother, if circumstances are not favorable, he can forget God. Whole lifetime he can forget God. Again he may get a chance because he had prayed to the Lord. Only if the father and mother are devotees does he continue his God consciousness. Therefore, it is a great fortune to take birth in a family of Vaishnavas, those who are God conscious. This God consciousness is real scientific knowledge. Dr. Benford, is it true that the children of all such parents are somewhat spiritually superior to the children of other parents? So then he is asking that are they superior, those who take birth in the family of Vaishnavas? It's a fact because the Lord gives them a chance to be born. Prabhupada used to say these are Vaikuntha children. Do not neglect them. There's a lot of difference between children born of karmis and children born in the family of devotees. So the Lord has given them chance, and now if we don't take care to give them a chance to become God conscious, then the Vedic literatures are saying matra sana syat, pita sana syat. Then better don't become parents. If you cannot relieve your children from the cycle of birth and death. So Prabhupada is saying, generally yes, they get the opportunity of being trained by the mother and father. Then Prabhupada is relating his own life. Fortunately, my father was a great devotee. So I received this training from the very beginning. Somehow or other, I had this spark of Krishna consciousness and my father detected it. Then I accepted my spiritual master. In this way, I have come to this stage of sannyas. I am very much indebted to my father, for he took care of me in such a way that I became perfectly Krishna conscious. My father used to receive many saintly persons at our home, and to every one of them he used to say, kindly bless my son so that he may become a servant of Radharani. That was his only ambition. He taught me how to play the mridanga, drum, although sometimes my mother was not very satisfied. She would say, why are you teaching him to play mridanga? But my father would say, no, he must learn a little mridanga. My father was very affectionate to me. Therefore, if due to past pious activities, one gets a good father and mother, that is a great chance for advancing in Krishna consciousness. So, it is very important to understand that actually only the living entity who are pious, advanced in spiritual life, if he is fortunate, he prays to the Lord right from the womb. That means he begins his devotional service right from the womb. And further, if we can give them a chance to become Krishna conscious, to continue their journey of Krishna consciousness, then actually we are doing our duties properly. So, here we find very important prayers which are recited by such a child in the womb of the mother. So, Prabhupada is referring that already in the previous prayer, the child has already said that, my dear Lord, I surrender unto you. Prabhupada is saying, as stated in the previous verse, the Jiva soul says, I take shelter of the Supreme Lord. So let us see what is that in the previous verse, where the living entity prays to the Supreme Lord that he is taking shelter of him. So this is the previous verse. The human soul says, I take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in his various eternal forms and walks on the surface of the world. I take shelter of him only because he can give me relief from all fear, and from him I have received this condition of life which is just befitting my impious activities. So he is praying that he is taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in this material world, walks in this material world, walks on this earth. So the word, Prabhupada explains, Chalat Charanar Vindam, refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead who actually walks or travels upon the surface of the world. And then Prabhupada is giving the example, like Lord Rama actually walked on the surface of the world. Lord Krishna also walked just like an ordinary man. So the prayer is referring to that Supreme Personality of Godhead who comes in his various incarnations like Krishna, personally, Rama, or many other incarnations of the Supreme Lord. So, Prabhupada explains that actually Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita, he has an important mission in this material world because of which he comes in every millennium. Sambhavami yuge yuge Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam, and dharma samsthapana arthaya, in order to establish proper dharma, the Supreme Lord comes in this material world. And He walks on this surface of the earth, gives the chance to the living entity to become attracted by the varieties of His pastimes the Lord performs when He comes here on this earth. So, He is praying to that Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Prabhupada is saying that another very important realization this soul is praying is that the Supreme Lord comes by His own will. Whereas the soul has also realized that he is bound in the womb of his mother by the arrangement of that Supreme Personality of Godhead because of his karma. Because of his own karma, he is bound, he is put into this condition by the arrangement of that Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the word which is used is Ichhaya. By his own will, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he comes to this material world, he walks on the surface of this earth. And then he is saying, I surrender unto him, because by surrendering unto him, I can become completely fearless of this material existence. It's a fact, because this whole material existence, which is called Mahatattva, it stays at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So his lotus feet are called Mahatpadam. They are the shelter of this whole material existence. So if one can take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are also compared to a boat which will never sink, and this great ocean which is considered to be Mahat, it becomes reduced to the size of a calf's hoof print. Then by the mercy of the Lord, one can easily cross over this material existence. So, this is very important. So he is saying, I take shelter of him only. He can give me relief from all fear, and from him I have received this condition of life which is just befitting my impious activities. Akuto bhayam, I can become completely fearless. So here, in today's verse, we find further, he is making a clear distinction between himself and the Supreme Lord, who has also come in the form of Paramatma along with the living entity in the same body. Here he is saying the Supreme Lord not only comes to the earth, he is walking. That same Supreme Lord, along with me, he has also entered into this body. Difference is, he has come by his own Ichha. I have come being forced by my karma. That is the difference. So he is saying, I, the pure soul, appearing now bound by my activities, am lying in the womb of my mother by the arrangement of Maya. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him, who is also here with me, but who is unaffected and changeless. He is unlimited, but he is perceived in the repentant heart. To him I offer my respectful obeisances. So this very interesting verse. He is saying, Yastu atra baddha iva karma bhir avaratma I am lying completely covered. Avrata means completely covered. Avratatma, covered by bhuta, indriya, ashaya. I am covered by 5 material elements: bhuta, gross material elements; indriya, senses; ashaya, mind; and avalambhya mayam. It is all by the arrangement of the Maya of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, and in the same body, the Supreme Lord is also existing. Asate Vishuddham. I am lying here being contaminated in my consciousness, because my consciousness has become impure, even though I am Atma. He is saying, Avarat Atma. And Prabhupada is saying, that is why I, the pure soul. Because actually, in original position, the Atma, being the part of the Supreme Lord, is also pure. But his consciousness has now become contaminated, trying to lord over the Supreme, trying to lord over. So, because of that impure consciousness, he has now become bound by different kinds of coverings. And that is what he is saying here. Yastu atra baddha iva karmabhir avratatma bhutendriya ashaya mayim avalambhya mayam. And in the same body, asate vishuddham, the Supreme Lord who is completely uncontaminated, even though he has come staying in this body, he is still not affected by the 3 modes of material nature. We become affected. When the living entity enters into any of the body, he is affected by the modes of that body. If the body is in the mode of ignorance, the soul also acts in the mode of ignorance. When the soul is in the body of a dog, he is acting like a dog. When Indra, the same Indra, when he came into the body of a hog, he was acting like a hog. And he was refusing that I don't want to go back to my original position. I am happy here. Isn't it? So we become contaminated, we become influenced by 3 modes of material nature. But he is called Vishuddham. And he is existing in his original form. It is not that he also has to take a body. When he comes to the material world, we have to take a material body. He doesn't have to. He is called Avikaram. So he is existing in his pure consciousness without change. Avikaram. Akhanda Bodham, unlimited knowledge. Now we are bereft of knowledge. Isn't it? He is Akhanda Bodham. And even though he is in the heart, in the same body, as it is confirmed in the Upanishad, that on the same tree of this body, there are 2 birds, Atma and Paramatma. One is too much enamored with the fruits of material life. He is busy in eating sukha and dukkha fruits. Other one is completely not at all interested, but he is still staying for the benefit of his friend. You see, they are called friends. He is staying for the benefit of his friend. Simply upadrashta anumanta, as witness and as sanctioner of the varieties of desires of the living entity. And at the same time, as suhradam, as the best friend, that the moment the living entity is repentant, the moment the living entity is repentant, he can actually perceive the presence of the Supreme Lord in his heart. Unless one is repentant of his sinful life, he will never be able to perceive the presence of the Supreme Lord. So here we can see here that is what he is praying. Atapyamana hridaye avasitam namami. That Supreme Lord who is perceivable when one is repentant in his heart, to him I offer my respectful obeisances. We'll stop with this. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.